So where to start? I don't really know. It is pretty crazy thinking back to when I was a kid. DC shoes, um, snowboarding, numerous snowboarding brands, things like that. Like things that I looked at and were like on such a pedestal. Like I couldn't have a lot of those things. I didn't have, you know, the cool skate shoes. Those are all things that I like looked at, and I really, really wanted the fat tongue in the DCs that became super popular, and their signature that was all him. All these things that I really looked at and didn't know like where the impact came from. It all came basically from Ken. I grew up in like around cars and watching racing. On the weekends, it was horsepower TV and trucks and all these things. Learning about building and driving and everything. It was never really a thought of like where is all this coming from. It just kind of like was in me. And started seeing rally and things like that, like F1 and things like that never really caught my attention. But rally was something that was definitely just like cool and pretty crazy in the dirt. It's something I've never seen before. It's so different from like drag racing or anything like that. Like it takes such skill and really like practice, which is pretty crazy to think about. Like when you think about practicing like you race, racing like you practice, like it's 100% all the time or nothing. And so that was always pretty crazy to me, to think that that was like how this sport was. So kind of as I grew up, I had all these things in my life that were like kind of affected by Ken. Didn't really realize it, how he was growing them exponentially just in the background. Maybe a lot of people knew, but a lot of people didn't. Enter again snowboarding. Ken got his start in snowboarding, and over these last few weeks, I've even like dove in further and learned more about Ken and his impact on that, and kind of how he got on that path. And really, that's where DC came from. That's where all these like jumpstart companies came from. That ultimately grew into DC, and then kind of launching him into the automotive world. And obviously lots of other stuff too. All the other forms of racing. Obviously, snowmobiles and everything like that as well. So, I mean, all this to kind of say, like, Ken really did it backwards. Like, he really typically enter rally at a young age or just racing at a young age, and around, mid 30s, late 30s. That's usually when it kind of ends for rally, just because it's such a sharp sport. Once you get to your late 30s, you might not be as sharp or as agile as you were when you were in your 20s. Your reaction time, all those things might not be as good, but Ken kind of beat the cycle a little bit. Ken, Travis Pastrana, kind of similar, but motocross to rally, which I think is probably even more precise in rally as far as all of your senses being dialed in. Just pretty crazy. Bucky Lasek, obviously, skateboarding to rally, and he's obviously still really in it as well. But overall, it's just kind of interesting to look at Ken's life kind of holistically it was always just about growth and always about getting out of his comfort zone, um, building businesses at a young age, you know, getting kicked out of the local school, you know, college for trying to print stuff in the college print lab, all that stuff, like all these things to grow his business, racing, you know, learning how to draw shoes and product design and things like that. And so I think overall, like, especially, and it's really crazy that it happens that way, but you know, since his passing a few weeks ago now, I've definitely dove in and kind of better understood like his path to where he ended up, and like just never-ending work, working on himself as a person, working on his businesses. But I think what I learned that was probably biggest for me is that he really focused on the people around him, and he really gave a shit about the people around him, the people that were loyal to him, the people who helped him build, you know, the empire, so to speak. They were all his right hand. You know, you look at Hoonigan and, you know, Hurt and you know, all these guys, like, you know, they were just all guys with passion, and I think it's kind of what it comes down to, is understanding that that's what businesses need in order to succeed, and he recognized that, I think, from a very young age. So really crazy, obviously super sad, you know, with his passing, but again, one of those things where your Paul Walkers, Ken Block, you kind of went out doing what you loved and what you enjoyed. Ken loved being out in the backcountry on his sled. It's just kind of what he liked, you know. It's what what allowed him to find, like, you know, some peace. And obviously his daughter, his one daughter Leah, was getting into rally more, kind of doing more public things as far as like Hoonigan stuff, Hoonicorn versus the world, all these things. You know, I remember when Gymkhana 1 came out, and you know, all of them, just like always, like waiting for that next one to come out. Didn't really know what it was, but I knew it was cool. And just like really showing what these machines are capable of, and what he's capable of, I think is something that's, you know, kind of definitely worth noting. Obviously, like Travis Pastrana has kind of stepped in not long ago, which is, it's kind of interesting, you know, how that happens. Like you kind of find your you know, your person that's going to like fill your shoes once you're gone. And I think that's something that Ken maybe like subconsciously knew, that Gymkhana was going to have to live on, and obviously his rally career is going to live on through his daughter, and even his wife races. But yeah, you know, a dad, an entrepreneur, business owner, badass, just like all around a cool human being. And I think that's where so many people like connect. He's such a normal dude. Like, he loves to snowboard, he loves to, you know, go out on his sled, his Can-Am, like all these cool things as a kid, all things that you look at and maybe you can't afford, maybe you can, but Ken just did it so much bigger than anybody else, and he didn't rub it in anybody's face as far as his success. He just really celebrated, you know, his passions, and then of course the money and everything allowed him to do that. But overall, it really comes down to being a human, and that's why he was such a big inspiration to so many people. So yeah, I honestly, I just wanted to kind of put something out there with my thoughts, because you lose these people and you don't realize really how much they impact you. And so it's really just kind of interesting to like look back and understand all the things that he had his hands on that I looked at as a kid or as an adult, you know, in my 30s now, and just how much he just like spreads the stoke with everybody. And it doesn't matter if you like cars or not, you know, it's cool. Everything he does, realistically. So yeah, very, very sad for obviously his family first and foremost. Obviously, like really tight knit crew, but obviously all the companies that he left behind, all the people that he left behind in the motorsports world, but really, you know, celebrating how much he brought everything up and everybody up, gave opportunities to people. And I think that's something that's super just noble and, you know, inspires me. I've always wanted to own my own business, and you know, I have a really kind of deep fire when it comes to people, and, you know, building people up and understanding them, and really just giving them a place where they can grow and succeed. And I think that's always been Ken's recipe. It's very clear, but at that point for me, I think that's where I want to, you know, at some point I'd like to do that on a larger scale. I don't know how or when that will happen. I just know that at some point, you know, I would like to kind of get that started, and you know, really build up people like Ken did. But yeah, so like I said, you know, Ken was you know, really just a mentor and an inspiration to so many people. It's very, very crazy, you know, how fragile a guy like that, who is, you know, larger than life, invincible, you know, to all the death-defying stunts that he did and things like that. You know, mountains he climbed and summited. You know, he just whatever he did, he didn't do it half-ass. He didn't blame it on his age. If he had a hard time, he never really made excuses. So that is something that really sticks with me, and you know, I will always hold close kind of the things that were, you know, maybe not meant to, maybe weren't meant to be taught through video and through all the things that he did. But I believe he did teach many people, millions, billions of people, through all of his different crafts. But really, again, just inspiring people. So thank you, Ken.